Well, first off, the purpose of this plan, as I see it, is to answer the U.S. criticism or the U.S. concern when we say, oh, you don't need to fire long range into Russia. That's going to be escalatory. That's going to lead to World War III. How is that going to help you in the war? How is that going to make a difference? Russia's already moved these aircraft. So what's this going to do? So Ukraine has come forward with a plan to say, actually, giving us the ability to fire long range is part of a broader strategy that's going to help us end the war more successfully and more quickly than if we don't do that. Now, what are the elements? I think one of them is indeed firing long range, but not for the purpose just of hitting cities, not at all. It's going to be hitting ammunition depots, fuel depots, refineries, logistical hubs, anything that Russia's using to sustain its forces that are attacking Ukraine, and also to make it more difficult for Russia to plan and carry out operations with aircraft to attack Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructure. So that's the military component. The other components are economic. There is a underemphasis on the need to rebuild Ukraine's economy even during the war, even as quickly as possible now, so that you increase the tax base, you bring people back to work, you bring refugees home. You need to have an economic component to the strategy. And then finally, I think there's going to be an institutional and a diplomatic component as well. Because suppose you do end up with a end of the fighting today. There's a ceasefire of some kind, there's an end to fighting. How do you prevent the next war? And the way you prevent that is by Ukraine becoming a member of NATO and the EU. So I think packaging that NATO membership question as part of the end of the war is also something that's going to be there.
So how are people in your circle and people that you know about, how are they receiving this NATO membership piece?
Well, most people that I know support it. And that's maybe a reflection of whom I talk to, who my friends are. But most people say, yeah, NATO works. NATO has deterred war in Europe for 75 years. It's been successful. Putin has only attacked countries that are not members of NATO. Georgia, Ukraine, occupies part of Moldova. So if we're going to end this war, we need to prevent the next one as well. So most people favor that. Now, the argument against that, and this is what you get from some in the Biden administration, not everyone, but some in the Biden administration, and some people outside, is that, well, you can't bring them in as long as the war is ongoing, because that would drag the US directly into that war. And that, in my view, is a little bit too simplistic. The NATO treaty doesn't say what you do to help a country defend itself or how we exercise collective defense. It just says that there is an obligation to do something. And so we can talk with the Ukrainians about what they need and how we do this. But the most important piece of this is the long-term signal it sends to Vladimir Putin. He's never going to actually win here.
So speaking of that signal that is sent to Vladimir Putin, he said just a day or so ago that, and he essentially was trying to take a page out of NATO's book, talking about essentially Article 5 in reverse. You know,
Mhm.
nuclear country helps Ukraine, which is a non-nuclear country, they would consider that an act of war with both, or all of the countries that are assisting Ukraine, nuclear or not. That sounds like another red line. Is that a line that he can cross? That
Yeah.
Russia is able
Yeah.
to cross?
Yeah, anytime Vladimir Putin says something, we need to ask ourselves not what is he saying, but why is he saying it? He is saying this not because he intends to use nuclear weapons. He's saying it because he wants to deter the US and the West from helping Ukraine. And so by raising this threat, he's hoping to get inside our heads and deter us from actions that we otherwise might take. That's the purpose. Now, the difference between where we are today with Russia's war on Ukraine and where we have ever been on nuclear strategy, nuclear policy from Russia, Russia, like the United States, has always viewed nuclear weapons as a last resort to defend the state. If we are under mortal threat, then you can use nuclear weapons to attack an adversary who's attacking you. That's not what's happening here. Russia is the aggressor. Russia is attacking Ukraine. It's a war of will that they want to take over Ukraine and somehow subordinate it to Russia. If they just stopped, the war would be over. There isn't any other war against Russia. No one's threatening the Russian state. No one's trying to take over the Russian state. So, in this context, the use of nuclear weapons really doesn't make any sense.
I hear what you're saying, but I also hear the voices of those out there that are saying this is uncharted territory. Vladimir Putin's aging and he's more powerful than he's ever been. And there's this question about whether or not he might just throw throw some caution to the wind and do something that nobody expects. I get I hear you saying you don't think, even considering all of that, you don't think that's likely, right?
I don't. No, I don't think that he would view the use of nuclear weapons as in his interest. You're gonna draw in a major response against Russian forces if they use nuclear weapons. You're going to alienate India, China, any other remaining support that Russia has, and you're not going to achieve your military objective of taking over Ukraine. So it doesn't add up as to why you would do it. But even more important than that is the Russian military, which has a say in this. This is not just one key holder, it's several people with the keys to the nuclear weapons. They don't want to do it because they know it's going to be devastating for them. So I don't think Putin wants to push them, and I don't think he wants to give an order that might not be followed. So I think we have to take it seriously. We have to be calculating, but we shouldn't overreact by just being afraid that Russia might do something.
Okay, now back to Ukraine for just a couple of moments here. So we think we know what it is that President Zelensky wants. We know that they've gotten another $8 billion from the U.S.
Mhm.
What are what are their capabilities at this point now with this new aid? How's that going to help them um, more than they've been helped already? Aside from the fact that yes, they need more weapons. So how's this
Right.
new money going to help them?
Right. Well, first off, as you said, JJ, more is more. So if you have ammunition and you depleting your ammunition, you get more ammunition. That's good. What would really make a difference is if we are changing anything in terms of quality or qualitative use of weapons and lifting the restrictions on long range. That would be a very big thing. The US has still not provided any aircraft to Ukraine, and we fixated on F-16s for so long. And yes, F-16s are important, but there are other types of aircraft, helicopters, attack helicopters, A-10 aircraft that are sitting in the desert in Arizona, lots of other things we could do. And it depends on how this 8 billion is used. What I what I think I see is a Biden administration that wants to put a lot on the table, but more of the same to try to send a signal to Putin that there's plenty of money here. What we need to do is say it's not just more of the same, it is whatever's needed to help Ukraine actually defeat the Russian forces. If we could get that message across, that could be the beginning of ending the war.
Now, the last thing, the long range permission.
Yeah,
Do you think that's going to happen?
I think it will happen. And so several guesses here. A, I think it will happen. B, I don't think there'll be a big announcement. Why would you advertise if you're going to do it? Just let it happen. It'll probably be decided on an operational case by case basis. The US is embedded in every aspect of the command and control and the targeting. So, on a case by case basis, it'll probably be implemented. And I think that the Biden administration is very sensitive to the criticism coming from former President Trump about risking World War III. So they don't want to give any appearances of risking World War III. So you're likely to see more of this come after the actual presidential election than before.
Okay. Anything you want to add, sir?
Today, I saw a video of former President Trump saying that Ukraine is already lost, that that they've lost cities, the areas that Russia's occupied have been flattened. Ukraine's already lost. I was in Ukraine last week. Let me tell you, it is a dynamic, happening, busy place. It is very successful. It has not lost at all, and Ukraine will not lose the war overall. Well, what's being fought over is where this border is going to be in the future. But Ukraine as a country is going to survive.